This past weekend, I went to the Indianapolis regional qualifier, which is pretty funny because actually at the WCQ, I got my invite for the next WCQ, and right after that, I made a tweet where I said I'm never driving more than 3 hours to regional for the whole season because I already have my invite. But I found myself really interested in playing in this format after the ARG Invitational, so I just wanted to go to something, and also want to practice for the 200th YCS. It is very likely that we will have a new ban list by that point, but I still just wanted to get as much practice as possible with Altergeist, because I think even if Konami does for some reason hit that deck, it still will be playable in some capacity. It'll probably just hit like Rivalry or something. Anyway though, I did want to practice, and I wanted to practice with some new cards, and the two new cards that I wanted to try out were the two Altergeist trap cards that no one plays. So one of them was Altergeist Camouflage, and I don't really like Camouflage for its on-field effect. I don't think that part's really cool, but I thought Camouflage was cool in the graveyard because it protected your cards from being destroyed, which I thought was kind of neat. It kind of gave you an extra resilience against Twin Twisters and stuff like that. It turned out that the card just was too hard to get in the graveyard. The two main ways that you would do that is by using Protocol to send the Camouflage to the grave, or by making a Link monster with the monster that it's equipped to. Overall though, it just seemed like a really bad choice, so I didn't play that in the regional. The card that I did end up playing was the Trap Monster Altergeist, and this card does technically have a pretty cool effect. It prevents your Altergeist cards from being targeted or destroyed by card effects, and that's kind of cool, but the main point of the card is actually just as a free monster. Basically what I thought it would work with is if you have Protocol already, like in your opening hand, and you have Marionetter and you don't have any other Altergeist monsters, I thought in that case you'd want to summon Marionetter, and then getting another Protocol doesn't really matter, getting another Manifestation doesn't really matter, but maybe getting a Trap Monster would matter, so that on the next turn you can hopefully make a Hextia. And turns out that doesn't really affect anything. That play never came up. I really didn't use the card too much. I never wanted to use it. I mean, I only played the one copy, but you have so much access to it. Like, you can search it with Hextia, and you can search it with Marionetter, all that kind of stuff, but I never found myself actually needing the card. The couple times that I did draw it, it was okay, but I don't think it was, like, significantly better than just playing, like, a second Manifestation that probably would have gotten the job done. It turns out, like, realistically, the only time you ever want this card is when you have Protocol, Marionetter, and Manifestation in your opening hand, and you just want to like set something different besides the second Protocol or a Manifestation, so you just like set the Trap Monster. That never happened though, so I would say that in general you don't have to play the card. I will say it does have a really cool application with Temple of the Kings, which is a card I might try out later on. That makes Temple of the Kings, when you have Marionetter, it makes it into a free Hexia on the first turn. That's kind of cool. I don't know if that's like really worth playing, but there are some pretty insane hands if you can open Temple of the Kings, Marionetter, and Multifaker. There's someone at the ARG Invitational that actually topped using that strategy. Anyway though, I did want to mention that I went 6-2 at this regional. Now, I was really just trying to top 8. I wasn't so concerned about getting my invite because I already have my invite. So it was actually a little bit shorter than I would have liked to have finished. My two losses were to one Goki of the 4 that I played, and then one True Draco, although I should mention the True Draco player was Chester Henson, who actually won the 2017 Nats. There was like this interaction where if it was anyone else playing that deck, other than someone with like as good as he is, they definitely would have fallen for like what I was trying to do, where he targeted a set strike with one of the tributed True Draco spells, and then I chained like a bunch of stuff to try to get him to activate his monster effects, then I could chain a strike to it. He didn't fall for it though, and then in the last game, even though my hand was really good at breaking boards, it was like evenly matched and Protocol and all sorts of stuff. It was like Ash Blossom, Ghost Ogre. Even though I had all these cards to break boards, I actually didn't have any monster cards, so it didn't really matter, so that kind of sucked. I didn't get to really play that game, which just happens in these decks, and that sort of was disappointing. And then the Goki player that I lost to was actually a fan of the channel. He was super friendly, but it wasn't that I got extra linked in games 1 and 3. I mean, that technically did happen, but both times I had Rivalry and Strike or Protocol on my hand. I think in the first case I had Rivalry, Protocol, Multifaker, and Spoofing, which would have been really good to actually like break his board. You summon the Multifaker, and then you set all 3 back here, and then when he goes, you flip Rivalry, he has to Tri-Gate, and then you Protocol Tributing Multifaker, and then you Spoofing, shuffling back Protocol to add Multifaker, summon it, do all that kind of good stuff. But in both games 1 and 3, through one hand trap, he actually was able to not only extra link me, which I'm not too concerned about, he summoned Gumblar Dragon, so I discarded 2 cards from my hand, and then potentially you can set it up to where when your opponent draws, you can summon a Link Creepo and make them discard another 2 cards. So that really sucked, and that was really disappointing. So those games, I mean, I don't like fault him. He's a super nice guy. But like I don't mind extra linking so much because I think it's cool that like even though extra linking is really good against a lot of strategies, the trap based decks actually do have a pretty easy time outing that, and also the extra link restriction doesn't really affect decks like Altergeist too much. Like we don't really use the extra deck too much anyway. But yeah, so that was disappointing. But other than that, I pretty much had easy matchups all the way through. There were a couple games that were difficult, but I think in general, like I mean, I pretty much only played meta for the entire tournament. I think of the 8 rounds, 6 of them were against meta decks. Obviously, I played 4 Goki, which I think is good for me because I think Goki's a good matchup in general if they don't get to Gumblar you. But yeah, I wanted to practice. I did get some practice in. I think I'm getting really good with the deck, and both of my losses seem to be pretty much unavoidable, which definitely really sucked. But yeah, let's jump into the deck profile, and hopefully you guys enjoyed my analysis on the trap monsters. I will try not to dwell too much on stuff that I already explained at the ARG Invitational. Much of this deck is the same from that last event, but I did change as many things that I thought you could change without sort of ruining like what makes Altergeist good. So anyway, let's jump right in. So we have 3 copies of Marionetter, obviously, and then 3 copies of Multifaker, 3 copies of my Lucic, 2 copies of the level 2 guy, and then 1 copy of Concrete. I'm really trying to get this card in Starfoil, so maybe we can try to get that someday. No one at the vendors had them. I will say this card just gets better and better. I kind of mentioned that in the ARG Invitational profile, if you saw that, where I said that like I played this in a lot of events and like I never really used it, but then once I figured out like all the different applications for this card, it started becoming really good. At this event in particular, this card was extremely good against Magical Midbreaker Field. That card is being cited very heavily right now in Goki. I don't know if you guys saw Simo's video on it, but he kind of explains why it's good. Basically, the Goki player activates that at the start of their main phase 1, and then their cards or their monsters can't be targeted or destroyed by my card effects during their main phase 1. So that turns off the Altergeist Siliquitis, it turns off Solemn Strike, it turns off Altergeist Protocol, turns off Ghost Ogre, all sorts of stuff. So Concrete was a really good out to that, because when this thing's summoned, you can just target a face-up monster and negates its effects. So that's a pretty important application of this card that I wasn't really thinking about prior to this event, but it definitely came up. 3 Ash Blossom. It's a regional, so I figured it wouldn't be as competitive as like the ARG. I mean, the ARG event was like one of the hardest events I've ever played in. Like every single round was super tough, and this event was not as hard, I would say. I mean, I did play against 4 Gokis, and Ash is not very good against Goki. Obviously, like maybe I should have made Reaper this time. I took it out because I didn't think I would play as many Goki as I did at the ARG Invitational. But yeah, Ash is still pretty good against a lot of rogue decks, and then 2 copies of Ogre instead of the Reapers in the main deck. Like in hindsight, yeah, maybe I should have made Reapers. Like who knows, like what I would have played against. Like maybe if I made the Reapers, I would have beat the Gumblar guy. But even in that case, like I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to think, no, because in that case, like I Ghost Ogre'd his guy anyway, so like I already drew 1 hand trap. It just wasn't enough to stop his play, which like definitely really stings. So you pretty much have to draw like 2 hand traps, or in Altergeist you can draw like the Impermanence and then also Multifaker. That's not really 2 hand traps, but just 2 disruptions is usually what can stop them. But yeah, I mean that was like the only time that I really got comboed off, but I'd say in general I was really happy that I had Ghost Ogre against the other matchups instead of Reaper. For the spell cards, we have 3 copies of Pot of Duality. I really like this card. There were a couple comments from people asking like why I play this instead of Desires. I think I like kind of explained it as well as I could. But this card is just like really good. Like you don't need to banish cards in this deck. Like you don't actually want to banish any cards. Like none of the Altergeist cards want to be banished, and more so than like other decks that I've played where I've played the Desires and it doesn't really matter. Altergeists are really like a deck that is good because of the main deck monsters, not so much the extra deck monsters. Not that Hexia is bad, but you really don't want to banish anything, and then Duality also gets you to 3 cards instead of just 2. Yeah, you don't get to pick all 3 cards to your hand. It's not like a +2 randomly, but it is you get to see that many cards. It's good for digging for side deck stuff. And then I stuck with the Called by the Graves. This card continues to impress me. I think one application that I just started using this card is against the Goki monsters when you stop your opponent from going off. I think in one case my opponent had 2 Suprex on board, and I strike, well, he had 1 Suprex on board, he normal summoned another one, and then I strike the effect, and then I Call by the Grave his Suprex in the graveyard, and then on my turn I was able to summon not Marionetter, my Lucic, and then actually attack over the Suprex, and then I attacked directly and then killed the Suprex, and then he couldn't get the search because Call by the Grave is still active. That was a pretty good play. So I'm just continually impressed by Call by the Grave. It's not super great going second, but it is really good going first. We have 3 copies of Personal Spoofing. I don't know how I feel about the rare version of this. I think it's probably better than the Starfoil. I think Starfoil is higher than like common, but I guess we're just playing the rares. That card's obviously good. 3 Protocol. One of these was gonna be the Camouflage. I think a lot of people just played 2 Protocol just in general, but I don't know. I like Protocol a lot. I really want to draw that card. It's like trap cards that you can just flip up with no setup are really good in this deck. And then the 1 copy Manifestation, of course, and then the 1 copy of the Trap Monster. I already talked a lot about this card in the intro for this video, so I won't spend too much time talking about it. It's not like the best card. It's just I don't know. It's like cool. It's just not amazing, and it also can restrict you because you can't use Marionetter on your trap cards when you have this on the board. That never actually came up because I only like drew this card a couple times. But yeah, I would probably not play that again. But I think it's important to like experiment. It was a card that I thought I could add and wouldn't actually like hurt my chances of getting a top 8, but and it like didn't. It didn't directly hurt my chances of getting top 8. I didn't lose the games that I draw. It just wasn't optimal. 3 copies of I Win the Game. This card's really broken. I only played 1 Trickstar Sky Striker. Most of this event was just Goki, so this card wasn't as good. It's good against Goki, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely like really shines against Trickstar Sky Striker decks. But I did draw that against Trickstar Sky Striker and did just instantly win me the game. It was pretty funny. And then for Effect Negation, we have, of course, 3 Impermanence and then 3 Solemn Strike. These cards are really good. You really have to play Impermanence now. Actually, the fact that Goki is like the best deck makes this deck a lot better because it has a good Goki matchup. But one of the reasons it has a good Goki matchup is because this is the best deck that can play Impermanence. Well, it's the deck that can play Impermanence the best because I guess Goki can play Impermanence. But yeah, like Impermanence in the multi-figure is like one of the most unfair things you can possibly do right now. So it's just pretty crazy that it's in like this trap deck. And then Strike is just really versatile. It's kind of like a Call by the Grave sometimes. You really want to save Strike for like hand traps if you can. And then 1 copy of another I Win the Game card, just Imperial Order. Obviously, it's pretty stupid. I never actually had that card this tournament though, so I wouldn't say that it really impressed me this tournament. But like I said in the Invitational deck profile, like Order is really good because you activate it and then your opponent just scoops the game regardless of the game state, which is pretty darn good. For the extra deck, we have I think almost the exact same as last time, maybe a little different. So 3 Hextia, 1 Link Kribo, 1 Ashik, the Nightmare Phoenix, Cerberus, and Unicorn. Pretty standard stuff right there. Ningirsu for outing these cards actually, like when they have Cerberus, Phoenix, and whatchamacallit, the Goblin card, you can Ningirsu to out it. That doesn't really come up too often. We have Borreload, which you never make. We have Boreal Sword, which I never made. And then we have 1 Chimera Tech, which I don't know. I never made the second one, and I cut Cyber Dragon to 2, so I didn't think I need to play 2 copies of it. And the Cherries targets, we have the Isolde, Buster, and Spiral Double Helix. You notice that the Sky Striker cards are not in the extra deck anymore for Cherries targets. I never actually you don't want to side Cherries against like Sky Striker. You just have better cards. Like that's already a good matchup. You don't need Cherries. Like that's not how the deck beats you. Their cards don't really matter. So you don't really actually want to side Cherries for those matchups. So when you're not main decking Cherries, you don't have to play the Sky Striker cards. Pretty much I only think that the Sky Striker cards are good to have in the extra deck for Cherries when you're main decking Cherries, so you at least have some value out of the card when you play against those types of decks in game 1. But yeah, so I didn't play it for that, but I just played Double Helix instead. And ABC Buster Dragon. So next we have the 3 Reapers. They're like pretty good. I think that, well, honestly, I'm pretty sure these got Call by the Grave every single time. But it is good for baiting Call by the Grave so that you can like ogre their Firewall and just win that way. But yeah, this just got Call by the Grave every single time. But sometimes they won't have Call by the Grave and you'll just win. And then 2 copies of Cyber Dragon. I found myself at the ARG Invitational never siding into 3, so you don't need to play 3. I still sided it in as a 2 of a couple times though. Not against Goki, it's just good against Rogue. 3 copies of Evenly Matched. That's like a good card. I didn't play any mirror matches, so this card didn't come in handy too much. Mostly just a Goki matchup. We have 3 copies of Battle of the Elements. I finally got to draw this card. It's pretty good. It's the issue with this card is kind of like I drew this card when I got Gumballard in game 3, and it's like, okay, like if your opponent just kills you anyway, like this card doesn't actually matter. So it is, it's possible that if everyone is playing Gumblar, which it seems like they are, and Gumblar, that whole combo is still legal in like a month when I go to the 200th YCS, it's possible that just playing more hand traps, specifically Gamma, just to make sure my opponent doesn't go off, is going to be better than playing a card like Battle of the Elements that is good for breaking boards. This card is really good against the extra link board, but it doesn't matter if your opponent just discards all the cards out of your hand. and extra links used. So I think this card might be cuttable. It's a shame because I actually do really like this card in theory, and I wish I would have drawn it more before people started playing Gumblar. But at the current state of Goki, if everyone's just Gumblaring people, then like this card's really bad, especially because it's like a side deck card, so you only draw it in games 2 and 3, and at that point your opponent knows you're playing Altergeist, so they're always going to Gumblar you instead of just regular extra linking you. And yeah, so it's a good card in theory. If somebody happens to Gumblar, I guess it'll be really good again, but I think I probably should just got it for Gamma. And then 2 Wiretap and 2 Heavy Stormduster, pretty standard cards we've been playing for a while. Anyway though, that's pretty much going to wrap up this deck profile. I didn't want to explain too much stuff that I already explained. I did make a couple changes. I think it's important to like experiment sometimes, and that's kind of what this regional is for. I am really trying to be competitive this format. I really did want to top 8 this regional. I think I had a really good list, and it was really refined. I just keep getting better every week, which is pretty cool, and I thought my losses were pretty much like unavoidable. Like I couldn't really do anything in both those games because it's not like it's not like against the True Draco person I took out Altergeist cards. Like I played as many Altergeist cards as I could. Sometimes you just don't draw them. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you later. Thank you so much to all the fans that came up to me at the regional and had me sign their cards. So many totally awesome, so many FA cards, so many Garnets, all that sort of stuff. But I'll see you guys later. Bye.